Alright, this is my Week 3 NFL Power Rankings. Let's get started. So starting, how do I put this out here? I should put this down here. Sorry. Starting off at number 32, we're going to have the Carolina Panthers. I mean, they're atrocious once again. Lost 26-3 versus the Chargers. Bryce Young had 84 passing yards in this game, which did lead him to getting benched. He deserves to be benched after throwing for 84 passing yards in an entire NFL game. That is pretty pathetic. Andy Dalton probably won't do good enough to win them a game because the Panthers still suck. But I do expect Andy Dalton to be miles better than Bryce Young. And at this point, I would expect Andy Dalton to start for at least a few weeks, and then Bryce Young probably takes it over again. Hope more of just a wake-up call, like you get benched for a few weeks, come back, this is your time to prove it. And Bryce Young probably, if Bryce Young doesn't do good that time when he comes back this season, he's probably done for his NFL career, at least as a starter, which is pretty sad, but that's what you get for sucking. Number 31 is the New York Giants. So they definitely played a lot better this week. They only lost 21-18 versus the Commanders. They had 3 offensive touchdowns and let up 0 touchdowns, but they still ended up losing in regulation. Pretty disappointing. Their kicker, Graham Gano, was injured, which definitely could have been a problem because they did not kick a single extra point after he got injured, which definitely would have made a big difference in a 3-point loss when you had 3 touchdowns. But still, overall, their defense played pretty solid. Daniel Jones was a lot better here in this game than he was last week. I don't think he's currently, at risk of losing the starting job after this week. I mean, he played solid, had 178 yards and 2 touchdowns with 0 turnovers. Malik Nabers was amazing this week with 10 receptions for 127 yards and a touchdown. If they can be at least competent and Daniel Jones doesn't look horrible, which he didn't look horrible in this game, then he'll be good for that starting job. Number 30 will be the Denver Broncos, 0-2. Obviously, they lost this week to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 13-6. Their offense has been atrocious. This week was not much better. They had 2 turnovers. Bo Nix threw for 246 yards, which is solid, but 0 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Not a great look there. Overall, Josh Reynolds looked good in this game, 93 receiving yards, but also they lost a couple guys to injury. Running back Audric Estime on the IR, offensive tackle Mike McGlinchey on the IR is going to be out for about a month as well. So a team that's already not very good, losing a couple offensive pieces, not a great look. Number 29, Washington Commanders. Like I said, they did win this week against the Giants, but it was not a pretty win. A 3-point win versus the Giants does not, help you guys out that much here in my rankings. They're going to stay at the same spot. Jaden Daniels was solid in this game. He had 226 yards here, but no touchdowns. He was sacked 5 times. He did have 44 rushing yards as well, so he looks solid. He just has not thrown for a passing touchdown yet. Brian Robinson had 133 yards in this game. He was really good. Their offense was solid. They just could not get anything done in the red zone, had to settle for a bunch of field goals, but they did get the win. 28, Tennessee Titans. Will Levis has a problem. He had an insane retarded interception in week 1. He had a retarded fumble here in the red zone where he could have just, I don't even think it was 3rd down, so he literally could have just, fell down and had another play to go score a touchdown, but he decided to try to pitch it backwards to the running back and ended up turning it over. And he looked so retarded on that play. I don't know why or what he was thinking. But overall in this game, only a 7-point loss to the Jets. Their first 2 games, they've lost to the exact same score of 24-17. So at least they're consistent with something. Will Levis, like I said, had a fumble. He also had a pick. He did have 1 touchdown, which is good. But overall, not a great game here for Will Levis. Tony Pollard had over 100 yards total. Calvin Ridley had a really, really good touchdown catch. But overall, Will Levis has got to get his turnovers down if they want to be able to win any games. Number 27 is going to be the New England Patriots. They lost 23-20 in overtime versus the Seattle Seahawks. So I don't think they should move down at all because the Seahawks are a solid team. Losing to them by 3 in overtime is a good look. I couldn't move them up too much either because there's a lot of teams that were low on this list that actually did play really well. So I can't really move them up any. But this was a solid week for the Patriots. No turnovers, no takeaways. They had a lot of rushing yards, 185 rushing yards in this game, and only allowed 46 rushing yards. So their run offense and run defense are both really good. But their pass offense isn't great. Only 149 yards and 1 touchdown for Jacoby Brissett. But they did have Antonio Gibson with almost 100 yards, Ramondre Stevenson 80 yards and a touchdown, and Hunter Henry had 109 of the 149 passing yards from this team. So no other player had over like 12 receiving yards. So they got to get some other receivers involved rather than just their tight end, Hunter Henry. Number 26, got the Los Angeles Rams. They're actually going to drop 17 spots here in this ranking. I believe that is the biggest fall off this for any team this week, and it's deservedly so. I mean, they lost 41-10 versus the Arizona Cardinals. They also lost Puka Nacua to IR, Cooper Kupp to IR, Josh Johnson to IR, safety, right? Yeah, safety Josh Johnson and guard Jonah Jackson to IR. So 4 key pieces they lost to IR. Their offense is not going to be as good, obviously, missing their top 2 wide receivers. And they got absolutely obliterated. So I do think they are certainly one of the worst teams in football, at least for the next 4 to 6 weeks until they get some of their guys healthy again. Number 25 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. They did not have a good game here against the Packers. I thought they'd have a good chance of winning, considering the Packers were without their starting quarterback. But that just was not the case. Their offense was atrocious. They lost 16-10. You only put up 10 points. After putting up like 27 against the Texans, you only put up 10 here on the Packers. You had 3 turnovers. Anthony Richardson was 17-34 for 200 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So last week, Anthony Richardson was really good. This week, he threw 3 picks and had a, bad completion percentage as well. So he has to be a little bit more consistent throwing the ball. But I did see some good things here from their defense, obviously. Only allowing 16 points is solid, but their rushing defense was atrocious. They had allowed over 250 rushing yards for the Packers, which is obviously not a recipe for success. 24 beat the Chicago Bears. They're going to drop 8 spots here after losing 19-13 versus the Houston Texans. They did not look pretty. Caleb Williams, 174 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. He was sacked 7 times. Their offensive line has got to help him out a little bit, but some of those were self-inflicted. He was trying to run around too much rather than just throwing it away or even throw it to an open receiver a couple of those times. But he's a rookie. I'm not too worried about him. They're 1-1 right now. He hasn't played great either the first 2 weeks, but I do think he'll continue to grow and improve throughout the course of this season. But it is a little bit concerning that he's not played particularly well at all so far, even though he's had a pretty good core of offensive weapons around him. Number 23 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. They dropped 13 spots after getting obliterated by the Bills 31-10. And of course, Tua is going to be out with his concussion. They said he's out for at least a month. They put him on IR. They signed Tyler Huntley to be a backup quarterback. Maybe Huntley ends up taking the job from Skylar Thompson, but Skylar Thompson's at least going to get the starting job here for week 3. Beyond that, maybe it is Tyler Huntley. Either way, neither one of those guys are going to be nearly as good as Tua was for them. In this game, they were down, pretty sure they were down 31-10 when Tua was still in the game. I'm not sure they scored again, like either team scored again after Tua got out. Tua didn't play good in this game even when he was in. He had three interceptions, only 145 passing yards, so it's not like they would have won the game if he kept playing. They were pretty bad when he did play. Achane was really good. He had over 160 total yards and a touchdown, so that's good. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill only combined for 65 receiving yards, so it's a little bit concerning. But like I said, they didn't have a whole lot of offensive production here overall, so you can't really blame those 2 guys specifically. It's going to be interesting to see if Tua can ever come back this year. They're saying, specialists, doctors, whatever, saying he should probably just retire. I'm kind of on that boat. I feel like he should just retire because if he gets one more, he's already probably going to have CTE at this point. He's had 3 pretty severe concussions in the NFL. He had a concussion in college, probably had some in high school. Like, it's not looking good for him and his long-term health. Obviously, would love to see him play again. I'm just not sure if that's the smartest option for his future. Number 22, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 0-2 now. Dropped 7 spots here after losing to the Cleveland Browns 18-13. Well, wasn't a horrible game for them, obviously. Only a 5-point loss. Their defense was pretty good, but their offense, again, atrocious. Trevor Lawrence was 14 of 30. Very inconsistent. 220 yards is solid, but 0 touchdowns, 0 picks, was sacked 4 times. Brian Thomas was good with 94 receiving yards. Britton Strange, their backup tight end, because Evan Ingram's injured, he had 65 receiving yards. So good look. Good thing to see out of your backup tight end playing pretty solid, but overall, again, yeah, their offense putting up 13 points. Not a good look. They also lost corner Tyson Campbell to the IR now, so that's not going to help their defense. Their defense is actually pretty solid so far this year, so losing a key defensive guy certainly going to hurt them a little bit. Number 21 here is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Like I said, they just beat the Jaguars 18-13. A pretty solid game for them overall. Deshaun Watson was a little bit better here than he was last week. He had, He had 186 yards and a touchdown and no turnovers, so that's good. Jerome Ford and Jerry Jeudy are both solid, getting over 60 yards each. Their defense, again, was pretty good, only allowing 13 points. But they do have a couple different injuries they got to worry about now. David Bell is out for this season. Juan Thornhill, safety, on the IR. Defensive tackle Maurice Hurst on the IR. Running back Pierre Strong is injured week to week. They did sign Royce Freeman to kind of take over Pierre Strong's role. I'm not really worried about their running back things, but they lost 2 key defensive guys here with Juan Thornhill and Maurice Hurst. That's what I'm mostly worried about with this team going forward. But good thing to know is that Deshaun Watson did look a lot better here in week 2 than he did in week 1. Number 20 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders, moving up 10 spots after a 26-23 win over the Baltimore Ravens. It came down to the last drive here of this game, and they played really, really solid throughout the entirety of this game. Gardner Minshew was great, 30 of 38, 276 yards with a touchdown and 1 pick. He was sacked 5 times, but he still played really solid himself. Devontae Adams, 110 yards and a touchdown. Brock Bowers had 9 receptions for 98 yards. Those 2 guys can continue to be absolutely dominant like they were in this game against a really good defense in the Ravens. This Raiders offense could actually lead them to a pretty solid record here this season. There's definitely a good look to see out of this week. Getting a good win versus the Ravens after having a subpar performance versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 19 here is going to be the Green Bay Packers. They move up 5 spots after beating the Indianapolis Colts with Malik Willis. They did not throw the ball a whole lot. They only had 122 passing yards, but Malik Willis was 12 of 14. With 122 yards and a touchdown, so he played really solid. He also had 40 rushing yards. They had 261 rushing yards as a team. They had 3 takeaways here in this game, 3 interceptions off of Anthony Richardson. Josh Jacobs, 151 rushing yards. So the running game was absolutely amazing. Their passing game, their passing game was efficient. They didn't even pass it that much, and he still played really good for when he did pass the ball. So I saw some really good things out of Malik Willis. So coming in next week, as long as they're probably going to have to make it a more pass-heavy game than it was this week. But according to what we saw this week from Malik Willis, that should be no problem. Number 18 here is going to be the New York Jets. They move up 1 spot after a 7-point win versus the Tennessee Titans. They played pretty solid here in this game. They had 2 takeaways, 0 turnovers. They had 4 sacks here on Will Levis. Aaron Rodgers, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 picks. He played really good. Breece Hall had over 100 total yards with a touchdown. Braylon Allen had over 50 yards and 2 touchdowns here in this game as a rookie. He's only 20 years old, and he had 2 touchdowns in this game. Really, really good look for them and their offense here in this week. If they can continue to do that, their defense looked solid in this week, and so if they continue to play how they did this week, they should be a solid team as well. But they did lose linebacker Jermaine Johnson for the rest of the season. That's going to hurt their defense, and they still need to try to figure out something with Hassan Reddick, because that should definitely help their defense out here as well if he does end up playing for them this year. Number 17 will be the Atlanta Falcons. They jump up 8 spots after a 1-point win against the Philadelphia Eagles, 23-22. Came down to the last drive. They were down by 6 points. Kirk Cousins leads 70-yard whatever touchdown drive in under like 50 seconds, and he did that flawlessly. They had 0 turnovers in this game. They let up 186 rushing yards, which is not good for their run defense, but overall still come out with the win. Kirk Cousins had 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Bijan Robinson had 97 yards rushing. Darnell Mooney had 88 yards and a touchdown. Drake London 54 yards in the game-winning touchdown there at the end of the game. So yeah, their offense looked really solid in this game. And that last possession showed exactly why this Falcons team can be the best team in this division as long as they continue to pull out some big wins like that. They got Kansas City this week, so that's going to be a challenge, but the Eagles were also a challenge, and they overcame that. Number 16, Pittsburgh Steelers move up 1 spot after beating the Broncos 13-6. I mean, they played the Broncos, and they only won by 7 points. Their offense looked atrocious in this game again. So, I mean, they're 2-0. They're going to be winning their games by low-score defensive shutout performances, basically like they did here in this week. They had 2 takeaways, 0 turnovers. Justin Fields only had 117 yards and a touchdown, but they don't need to do a whole lot on offensive side of the ball because their defense is as good as it is. And if they continue to have a great defense, Justin Fields, all he has to do is not turn over the ball, and then they're going to end up winning a good amount of games this week. Russell Wilson, they said he's probably going to be out for week 3 as well. They were saying that he might be able to take over the starting job when he comes back healthy, but personally, I'm be rolling with Justin Fields until he gives me a reason not to. Number 15 here, Arizona Cardinals move up 7 spots after obliterating the Los Angeles Rams 41-10. They played absolutely amazing here in this game. Their offense, overall, had 231 rushing yards, allowed only 53 rushing yards, so absolutely dominated that. They had 5 sacks in this game. Kyler Murray, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a perfect passer rating in this game. Absolutely amazing. He also had 59 rushing yards as well. He was amazing in this game. James Conner, amazing, 120 yards and a touchdown. Marvin Harrison, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had over 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter alone. He was absolutely incredible after having only 1 catch in week 1. So saw some really, really good things out of their offense and defense this week. If they continue to do that, I mean, they had a really good week 1 against the Bills, even though they did lose. So, and then a really, really good win here in week 2 makes me think that this Arizona Cardinals team could be a playoff team for sure. Number 14, Seattle Seahawks actually moved down 3 spots after winning against the New England Patriots. It was a 3-point win in overtime versus the Patriots. So not a very impressive win. That's why they are going to end up moving down, even though they did win the game this week. So looking at the specifics here of this game, they did have only 46 rushing yards compared to 185 that they let up. So they got to fix their run offense and their run defense for sure. Their pass offense was pretty solid. Geno Smith here in this game, 327 yards and 1 touchdown with no turnover. So he was great. DK Metcalf had 129 yards and a touchdown. JSN had 117 yards. Both those guys had over 10 receptions for over 100 yards in this game. If they can continue to be a dynamic 1-2 receiving punch, there's no reason why this offense is not good enough to be a playoff team. It's just their defense has not been amazing. They let the Broncos and Patriots both score 20 points. It's a little bit concerning considering they're not good teams. Their run defense needs to be better. Their pass defense has been pretty good. Their run defense has got to be better, though. Number 13 is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 0-2, lost by 1 to the Kansas City Chiefs this week, but they actually move up 1 spot after losing. I mean, a 1-point loss versus one of the best teams in the league in the Kansas City Chiefs certainly, I think, is better than the Seahawks having a 3-point win versus the Patriots. So that's why they are going to move up ahead of them. They played pretty solid overall. They had 3 takeaways to only 1 turnover. They only had 74 rushing yards compared to 149 that they let up. So they got to fix those a little bit here. But Joe Burrow was really good. 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did a lost fumble, which led to a scoop and score by Kansas City. But overall, he played really solid. Mike Gesicki was great, 91 yards in this game. Andre Yoshivas had 2 touchdowns in this game. He had 2 receptions for 7 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he basically was a red zone threat twice, and they got 2 touchdowns out of it. So he played really, really good. And they're going to need him to step up if they cannot get something worked out. You know, T. Higgins' injury and Jamar Chase being a little bit disgruntled anyway. So as long as they get some other guys like Andre Yoshivas, stepping up, that's going to be really good for them. Number 12, Detroit Lions dropped 6 spots here after losing 20-16 versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They did not play horrible here in this game. They had 2 turnovers to 1 takeaway, but they also had 5 sacks, which is pretty good. Jared Goff, 300 yards, but 0 touchdowns to 2 picks. Not a great look for him. Jahmyr Gibbs was great with over 100 yards in this game. David Montgomery had 70 yards and a touchdown here in this game. So the running backs did really good. The receivers, Amon-Ra, 119 yards and 11 receptions. Jameson Williams, 79 yards. So a lot of really good pieces here for their offense. It's just that Jared Goff threw 2 interceptions, which was kind of the difference maker here in this game. The defense only allowed 20 points. So really good defense, really good offensive production, aside from those 2 interceptions. So as long as Jared Goff can get that under control, they're going to probably win some more games. Number 11, Philadelphia Eagles dropped 6 spots after that 1-point loss to the Atlanta Falcons on Monday Night Football. They had the game in the bag, up by 3, 3rd down, threw a screen pass, or basically a screen pass to Saquon Barkley in the flat, who ended up dropping the ball, which gave Atlanta more time to go down and score. Personally, I would have probably ran the ball on 3rd down to waste 40 more seconds. And then on 4th down, probably kick a field goal still. Maybe you, depending on what you get on 3rd down, you could probably go for it on 4th down too. Try to make the Falcons at least have to go 90-some yards if you don't make it there on 4th down. But overall, I'm not too upset with the play calling there. Saquon should have caught the ball. I don't want to put that loss completely on Saquon, but that's kind of a pass you have to catch. Also worth noting, A.J. Brown did not play this game. If he did play, maybe they win. He's also supposed to be out for the next couple of weeks. They have no official timetable on him, but they said he'll probably be out for a few weeks. So that's obviously not good. They did have 186 yards rushing in this game, so their rushing game is still amazing. Jalen Hurts had 180 yards, 1 touchdown. Also had 85 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. So he was really good. Saquon Barkley had over 100 yards total. Devontae Smith, 75 yards and a touchdown. So, again, their offense was really good for the most part. The defense wasn't bad either. It's mostly that they just got to do a little bit better in the late game scenarios than they did this week. Number 10 here is going to be Dallas Cowboys, who dropped 7 spots after getting obliterated 44-19 versus the New Orleans Saints. They had 2 turnovers to 1 takeaway. Dak Prescott had nearly 300 yards with 1 touchdown, but also had 2 interceptions. Not a great look there. They had 68 rushing yards as a team. We would like them to be a little bit better than that. CeeDee Lamb had a touchdown and 90 yards. Jalen Tolbert had 80 yards in this game. So there, a couple of different receivers played really, really good, but the rushing game sucked. They had too many turnovers here. Their defense was absolutely atrocious, letting the Saints drop 44 on them. So I still think the Cowboys are a good team. Their defense needs to be better. Obviously, you cannot let up 44 points. Their offense wasn't bad. Dak just has to get his turnovers under control a little bit more. Number 9 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens, dropping 5 spots after losing to the Raiders 26-23. It was a close loss, and they still played pretty solid. So I don't really want to knock them down too much. They still feel like a top 10 team to me, even though they are 0-2 to start the year. They had 1 turnover and 1 takeaway. They had 5 sacks on defense, so that was pretty good. Lamar Jackson, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, also another 50 rushing yards. Derrick Henry, 80 yards and a touchdown. Zay Flowers, 90 yards and a touchdown. So again, they had a lot of good offensive pieces going for them in this game. Their defense, not the best. They let Gardner Minshew throw for like 280 yards on him, so you got to do a little bit better than that. But overall, they still look like a really solid team, and I definitely think they're still a top 10 team in the league, even though they did lose here to the Raiders. Number 8 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers, dropping 6 spots after losing to the Minnesota Vikings. They lost 23-17, so it was a close game. They had 2 turnovers and 2 takeaways, so their defense was still solid. Brock Purdy, 320 yards with a touchdown, but he also had an interception and a lost fumble. Their defense, they allowed Brock Purdy to get sacked 6 times in this game. That's not a good look. Jordan Mason was good with 100 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel had 110 yards. George Kittle, almost 80 yards and a touchdown. So still some really good pieces here for their offense, again, as a whole, aside from those 2 interceptions, or those 2 turnovers that they did have. Their defense was pretty solid. Only allowed 23 points, isn't too bad. But they did also lose Christian McCaffrey officially to the IR. He's supposed to be out for probably 6 to 8 weeks. Deebo Samuel also is injured. He's not going to be on the IR, but he's going to be out probably at least 2 to 3 weeks there. So definitely some things to worry about for their offense here coming up. And, as well as their defense. They let Sam Darnold put up 23 points on him, who has looked really good this year, but still is a little bit concerning. Number 7 is going to be the Minnesota Vikings, jumping up from 26 here all the way to 7. I think that's the biggest jump out of anybody this week, and it makes sense. They beat the Giants last week by a lot, but again, they put the Giants, so I didn't think that was 100% that impressive because the Giants suck. But then coming out and balling out against the Niners, who are a really good team, and beating them makes me really think that this Vikings team, at least the way they've been playing right now, is certainly a playoff contender at least. They did have 2 turnovers and 2 takeaways. Like I said, they had 6 sacks, which is pretty good as well, obviously, for their defense. Sam Darnold had 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He played really good. Ty Chandler, actually, the backup running back, had 80 rushing yards. Justin Jefferson, 133 yards and a touchdown. So really, really good pieces for their offense. Their defense was really solid, getting 6 sacks and 2 takeaways on Brock Purdy against one of the best teams on paper in the entire league. So Vikings have looked really good. Sam Darnold has looked really good. I don't see any reason to believe right now that they cannot keep up this level of play, considering Sam Darnold just played really good against a really, really good defense. So I'm really, really feeling high on the Vikings right now. Number 6, Tampa Bay Buccaneers jump up 6 spots after a 20-16 win versus the Detroit Lions. It was a really good game for them. They had 1 turnover to 2 takeaways. Baker Mayfield had 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. He did get sacked 5 times in this game, so he definitely did not look as good in week 2 as he did in week 1. Their offense looked a lot worse, but they still played a really, really good game. Their defense was great. Chris Godwin was still great with 117 yards and a touchdown. So still some really good stuff going here for their offense. Just obviously not as great as it was in week 1, but they don't really need to be, considering their defense had 2 takeaways, and they still end up coming out of this game with a win. They look like a really, really good team right now. Number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers move up 8 spots after demolishing the Panthers 26-3. I mean, they played the Panthers, so you can't really put too much thought into that game specifically because the Panthers kind of just suck. But they are going to move up here to all the way to number 5. There was a lot of teams here in between 5 and 13 that did end up losing, so that kind of just everything kind of fell in the way to move the Chargers all the way up to number 5 after beating a really bad team. But overall, 26-3 win is still good no matter who you play. They did have 2 turnovers to only 1 takeaway, so not great there. But they had over 200 rushing yards, only 130 passing yards in this game, but they did have 2 touchdowns. Herbert had an interception and a fumble, though, so he had 2 turnovers himself. But overall, still, their offense was amazing. Their passing game does not have to be as great as it has to have been in recent years, considering how good their running game is right now. J.K. Dobbins had 130 yards and a touchdown. Their passing game was primarily Quentin Johnston, actually, this week, having 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. So definitely this Chargers team is going to be a lot more run-heavy than it has been in the past, and that's a lot of thanks to Jim Harbaugh, because that's kind of the way he worked in Michigan. So, it kind of makes sense. That's kind of what we expected coming into this year. And J.K. Dobbins has looked really, really good to be a part of that dynamic rushing offense. Coming in at number 4, we're going to have the Houston Texans jump up 3 spots. They beat the Bears 19-13, but it still was not that impressive of a victory, in my opinion. They still won. They had 1 turnover to 2 takeaways. They had 7 sacks on defense, so their defense was phenomenal. Their offense was a little bit concerning. C.J. Stroud was still really solid, 260 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins, 135 yards and a touchdown. Thing is, he only had 1 touchdown in this game and just a bunch of field goals. So definitely like them to be a little bit better than that. But overall, still a really solid game from their defense. Their offense didn't really do too much to hurt their team. So they still look like a really, really good team here right now. Number 3 is going to be the New Orleans Saints, jump up from 18 to number 3. After demolishing the Cowboys 44-19. Again, after week 1, they demolished the Panthers 47-10, so I had to move them up quite a bit because of that. But then again, it was a game against the Panthers, so I didn't know how good they actually were once they had to play a real good team like the Cowboys. But they dominated the Cowboys almost as bad as they did the Panthers. So, they look like a really, really good team here for sure so far. They had 1 turnover to 2 takeaways here in this game. Derek Carr was amazing, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have 1 interception, but still played amazing. Alvin Kamara was absolutely amazing. He had 180 total yards with 4 touchdowns. He had 43 fantasy points for me, so that was really good. Rashid Shaheed, 96 yards and a touchdown. Chris Olave, 80 yards. Shaheed, Olave, and Alvin Kamara have all 3 been really solid here in the first couple of weeks. And I see no reason why this offense cannot continue to be as dynamic as it has been the first couple of weeks. Probably not scoring 40-plus points every week, obviously, but they played a really good defense in the Cowboys and lit them up just as bad as they did the Panthers. So I see no reason why the Saints offense cannot be one of the better offenses in the league, and overall their team is going to be one of the better teams in the league if they can keep this up. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills jumping up from 8 to number 2. They play the Dolphins here this week and ended up winning that game 31-10. Obviously, the Tua injury has something to do with that, but they were still up 3 scores here anyways when Tua was playing. So you can't really put a whole lot of you can't really be bring the Buffalo Bills down because they got a guy injured and that's why they won so bad. No, they were doing that good when he was in. They had 3 takeaways on Tua. They forced 3 interceptions on Tua. So it wasn't like, Tua was doing good and then the backup came in and sucked it up for him. No, Tua was pretty bad in this game. So their defense was amazing against a really good team. Josh Allen was not great in this game. 139 yards and 1 touchdown. Not a whole lot of rushing for him here, but the rushing offense was amazing. James Cook with 95 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns himself. So their offense doesn't have to always go through Josh Allen, as we saw here in this game. They put up 31 points when Josh Allen only had 9 fantasy points. So, it's good to see that they don't need to rely on Josh Allen every week to kind of carry this team. One thing to note is that they are losing Terrell Bernard, a linebacker, for probably a month or so. So that's going to hurt their defense a little bit, but overall, they still look like an amazing team so far. Number 1 is going to be the Chiefs. They were number 1 last week. They did not play a great game, but there were a whole bunch of teams that were right below them that ended up losing, so I couldn't really drop them down at all. They won 26-25 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Had the last-second field goal by Harrison Butker. So got a little bit of help there from the Bengals being stupid and getting that defensive pass interference penalty, but still a solid game. They did have 3 turnovers on offense to only 1 takeaway, which was a scoop and score touchdown by Chamari Connor. So it was a really, really important takeaway. But still, their offense was not great. Mahomes only 150 yards, 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He did not look good here. Pacheco had 90 yards. Rice had 75 yards and a touchdown, so still some other good pieces there for the offense. But one concerning thing, obviously, is going to be Isaiah Pacheco's injury. He's supposed to be out about 6 to 8 weeks. They did sign Kareem Hunt to hopefully kind of replace that role. I don't think Hunt's going to be as good as Pacheco, but I do think Kareem Hunt is going to be our main feature back. Maybe not in week 3, But at least in week 4 and week 5 and stuff, I think Kareem Hunt's going to be a really solid addition to this team. He obviously kind of knows the playbook still. He has history with Kansas City, and I think he's still a really solid running back here in this league. So yeah, that is going to be it for that. Let's go into my game picks. Last week was not a good week for me. I only went 7-9, but I did hit my lock of the week and my upset of the week, so that's good. My season record overall now is 20-12, so it's still a solid overall record there. But for this week, I got the Jets over the Patriots. I mean, Patriots aren't that good, I think. Bucks over Broncos, that's my lock of the week. The Broncos kind of suck, so that's what I got there. Chargers over Steelers is my upset of the week. I don't really think that the Chargers should be the underdog in that game anyway, so that's why I'm picking them there. Eagles over Saints. I think the Saints Cinderella run kind of dies down a little bit, but I still think it'll be a pretty close game. Browns Giants should be easy. Texans Vikings. I mean, the Vikings kind of same thing with the Saints. I think they'll still be a close game, but I think they will finally, come down a little bit to earth and end up losing that game. Titans over Packers. It's Malik Willis's revenge game, but I do think Tennessee takes that game there. Colts over Bears should be close. I'm taking the Colts there. Raiders Panthers should be easy. Seahawks Dolphins should be easy with Tua not playing. Niners Rams should be easy with all the Rams injuries. Lions Cardinals should be a really fun game. I expect that to be high scoring, but I do think the Lions come out on top. Ravens Cowboys, kind of the same thing, but it could easily be a very low scoring game. But I do think that's going to be a very, very close, tight game. I think the Ravens come out on top just because I don't think that the Ravens are bad enough to be 0-3, even if it's a good team that they're losing to. Chiefs Falcons, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Bills Jags, I mean, Jags have not looked very good recently. The Bills looked amazing, so I'm giving them that. And Bengals Commanders should be a pretty obvious one as well, as long as the Bengals play relatively how they played against Kansas City, they're going to demolish the Commanders. But that is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list, and goodbye.